a lot of our work is in change and transformation. So we sometimes have to teach people who have no design background
Yeah.
actions and activities and artifacts and tools around design thinking, which is, about exploring ideas and asking the right questions and basically, starting to think a little bit in a way certain designers think like, in order to problem solve better. And problem solving is sort of a business as usual thing, or at least it should be, right? You shouldn't just not ask any questions, leave it as it is.
Yeah.
And then when you do that, usually you end up messing things up, or things just don't stay the same quality, or people are unable to react by themselves. And if I look at what a lot of clients are talking about or need, they say, well, our teams need to be a bit more self-enabled, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're not. And for me, this calls all these things back my days, as an artist and designer, to go, well, back in the days, it was only the outcome that mattered. And I just took whatever tools I needed to, and sometimes needed to find the right tools to do the things I needed to do to get the outcome. Wouldn't you say that that applies not just to innovation teams? And if so, can you talk a bit more about this negotiating approach to saying it's not just about list of skills, it's something else? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah,
More?
absolutely. And in fact, I teach a course. I teach two courses actually on strategy and design thinking, and I would even expand on what you were saying about the importance of problem solving, to say that the best teams are not only the ones that are good at solving problems, they're the ones who are good at defining and finding the right problems to solve. Right. So this idea that you can have a very good solution to a problem, but if the problem is not the right problem to solve, even the very good solution is not the correct solution. I would say that the general idea behind negotiated joining is that instead of saying to an employee, here is a role that we expect you to perform and it's fully defined, we just want you to be a good fit for it, which is how I think the default way of thinking about employing people generally works. What you're saying instead is, here is a role that is partly defined, and there's a part of it that is, in a sense, it's malleable, it's soft. Like it's like clay that you can work with as both the employee, potentially, and as the organization, which means that there is a part of every employee's role when they're joining that is a bit squishy. And when things are squishy, they can be changed. And what that means is the process of negotiation is actually about what shape that squishy part of the role takes. And if you wanted to extend that, which I think it makes a lot of sense, the squishiness of things is how organizations can become adaptable, right? So when we talk about adaptation to change, when a situation changes and the organization is able to change itself in response, the only way that that change can happen is if the organization is not rigid. And so one way that organizations are incredibly rigid is when they've got hierarchies and teams of people who all expect and are incentivized to only do the jobs that are in their job description. And so one way that you can make an organization less rigid and a little bit softer and more willow-like rather than oak-like is to say the roles that every person or some people in the organization play are only partly rigid. Some part of it is not rigid. It's a bit squishy. And then the process of negotiation is figuring out, by trying things out and seeing whether those work, how that squishy part evolves and how it gets shaped.